crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film released of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Green Ice, released February 26, 1982. It was written by Edward Anhalt, Ray Hassett, Anthony Simmons, and Robert de Laurentiis, based on a book by Gerald A. Browne, directed by Ernest Day, with uncredited work from Anthony Simmons, and released by ITC Entertainment.
So many writers, it's always a good sign.
Whenever it's a tumbleweed of production like that, you know that you're getting a great story in the end. Gerald Browne's novel Green Ice was published in 1978. The author traveled to Colombia to observe the emerald trade up close after a lifelong fascination with the vibrant green gemstones. The film was quickly considered for a film adaptation with names like David Niven Jr. and Richard Burton bandied about, but never officially attached. Anne Archer was brought on based on her performance in previous ITC release Raise the Titanic, but as we've discussed, that film in particular nearly single-handedly sank the distributor, and Lou Grade had to sell ITC's distribution rights to Universal. Immediately following Raise the Titanic was another major bomb, The Legend of the Lone Ranger, so Fred Skepsi's Barbarossa was shelved for over a year. Looking at the lineup though, maybe it's good ITC paused where they did, because the next two films on their slate, which never made it to production, were called The Chinese Bandit and Eleanor Roosevelt's N-Words. And the title had the N-word in it. Anne Archer and Ryan O'Neal, reportedly the sixth choice for his part, fought often on set over the tone of the film. According to the original director Anthony Simmons, the book contained many separate through lines running concurrently, and the eventual film tells only one of maybe 5 stories, because producers had their hearts set on the Bolivian chapters, which the script updates to Colombia, and for which the production filmed in Mexico. Director Simmons was unhappy with the script's mangling of the book and worked with writers for over a year trying to salvage the project, but time came to shoot, and within a few weeks he was fired, though still collecting his full pay. He was told at the time that he would be replaced with Planet of the Apes Papillon Boys from Brazil director Franklin J. Schaffner, but I guess that didn't work out because second unit director Ernest Day was bumped up to first unit and gets the directing credit on screen.
This is all starting to make so much more
Doesn't
sense.
This all felt like second unit footage.
Lou Grade has admitted since that the project reads a bit more like a TV movie than the Bond-esque flavor they were going for. We start with a Maurice Binder opening title sequence, with supermodels holding and wearing all manner of emeralds and drinking fine champagne in a dramatically lit room. Binder is of course famous for similar sequences in every James Bond film, from Dr. No to License to Kill.
But do you remember the last non-James Bond Maurice Binder outing we had?
Was it Folks or the Seawolves?
I was thinking of The Final Countdown.
Oh, it could have been. Yeah, he did the visual effects for the
effects,
for the time warp. Yeah, I think he did do the Seawolves.
Did he do the Seawolves?
Also, yeah. A pair of hands hold up a large emerald, and the camera floats through the silhouette of the gem into an aerial shot of Mexico as Colombia, South America. And we will never be informed again where the film is taking place beyond this moment.
I love it. Like Colombia. It's like, well, people won't know that it's South America.
Which Colombia?
The District of Columbia?
Is that the White House? No, that's another tree. We watch Miguel, a Colombian guide, leading a team of white foreigners through a dense jungle. Miguel kisses one of them, apparently his girlfriend, Carrie, goodbye as they part ways. I don't know if they're in a relationship or if this is just one of those places where people kiss. but they don't mention that they were an item anywhere later in the film. When they reach a nearby train station, the group are stopped by military officials demanding their papers and questioning their story about what they're doing here in Colombia. When the official grows suspicious, he orders the group lined up and frisked, and when one of his henchmen gets handsy with Carrie, gripping her chest, she slaps him, so he doubles down, tearing open her shirt. The official in charge seems satisfied until one of the group drops a canteen and it rattles like a box of Altoids. He dumps the contents of the canteen in his hand and finds a dozen raw emeralds. The guard that assaulted Carrie drags her into a nearby shed, and the men she is traveling with are forced to strip down to their underwear. Their clothes and passports are burned, and the men are shot.
So also they're like going through all their stuff, and they're finding emeralds in everything, like even in the bread.
Yeah.
But when they burn the passports and clothes, I thought this was like a power move of like
You're stuck here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, you're stuck literally right here because I'm going to stop your body in a second from moving ever again. The woman in the shed is being forcibly undressed when the lead military official calls the man away and enters the shed to shoot Carrie once in the chest. She screams and collapses. We cut to Ryan O'Neal as Joseph Wiley walking toward camera under an obnoxiously repetitive score.
It's so jaunty. Like, it's
We just saw a guy hit the ground and then we're in So Fine all of a sudden.
this, like, the opening of this film doesn't resemble any of the rest of this film. It's
also, this is
very
a
dramatic.
bad angle on Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
His face looks so fat and weird.
Yeah, well, and he's just walking so awkwardly. I was like, okay, Ryan, just walk towards the camera. No, don't
Not
look
like
at the
that,
camera.
not like that.
No,
Don't do that.
Just walk. Just walk like a normal person.
Joseph is walked to a vehicle which he is either renting or buying, a 1974 VW Safari. He puts on the windshield wipers, apparently by mistake because it's not raining, and they pop right off the car, but the salesman collects the piece and assures Wiley it's no issue.
In Mexico never rains.
Why you even put these on them? Wiley seems satisfied and drives off to meet with an associate outside of town, struggling to repair his helicopter. Wiley asks what's wrong with it, and the guy isn't totally sure. A woman's voice from inside a neighboring building asks if he's headed to the coast, and when he answers in the affirmative, she steps outside. This is Holbrook, played by Ann Archer, and she asks if she can catch a ride to Las Hadas. Joseph is smitten, and so of course he accepts. Here is where I will mention that although they apparently didn't get along on set, I was often disturbed by how closely Archer resembles O'Neal's own daughter Tatum, especially later in the story when the two are predictably falling in love with each other. I was like, Ann Archer looks exactly like an adult Tatum O'Neal.
Yeah.
This is creepy. Before he leaves with the girl, Joseph diagnoses the chopper pilot's problem.
Why don't you give a tweak to your barostatic micro switch? But watch your TOT.
Holbrook is impressed when the chopper flies overhead moments later, implying that Joseph's advice has already been put to good use. He tells her he's an electronics engineer, but primarily an idea man. As for the rest of his life, he lost a fortune investing in mung beans, his wife left him, and he was fired from his day job. When it's her turn, we learn she's from Philly, but she lives in Mexico City, and she's visiting Las Hadas on vacation. He says he came to Mexico on a whim, and she suggests he try his luck finding a sugar mama in Las Hadas, since he's so charming.
There's only one problem.
What's that?
Women are going for younger men these days.
Well, nothing beats experience.
Except stamina.
They pull up to a sprawling hotel on the coast, and Joseph is self-conscious about the crappy car he rolled in with. Holbrook is greeted in the lot by a handful of eager hotel staff ready to help. She orders a room for the man who drove her here, and he's shocked when he learns the daily price is $284. Like, she's paying for it, but So, for some reason he figured out the price and is shocked by it. Sometime later, Joseph steps out of his shower to find another man in his room. This is Mr. Prentice, and somehow the hotel has mistakenly rented the same room to both men. No effort is made to explain why this double booking occurred, and insanely, Joseph has to point out to the hotel that they are obligated to find Mr. Prentice another room. They can't just kick out the first person they gave a key to.
I'm sure you can find Mr. Prentice a better suite.
Naturalmente, señor.
Sorry about the mix-up.
Oh, that's perfectly all right.
This is so bizarre. I like.
They needed him to intercept a call, and this is the weirdest way to do it.
It is so bizarre. Like, everything that happens in like the first 20 minutes of this movie, shy of that like cold open, it just seems like a weird series of coincidences.
Yeah.
Because and now after you've explained it all, it feels like there's a whole lot of book that we're not getting here.
Sure, probably.
But it's just like they just randomly meet, and she randomly hitches a ride with him, and she randomly says stay in this hotel, and then they randomly try to put a guy in his room, and then he's gonna get, you know, some information that was intended for this man.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm assuming when she arrives, she says, "Can you do the impossible? Find him a room." So I imagine they just bumped some guy who they thought was just some guy, and turns out that this was a whole setup for this guy.
So you're saying that would explain why they were double booked? That they literally just kicked a person out of the room to make room for her?
Well, yeah, they just
Because she's more important than...
Exactly. So they just said, okay, well, we'll give him Prentice's room, and when Prentice shows up, we'll figure something out.
But instead, they were just like, you can also have the same room.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys will get along.
But then I feel like it's like this chain reaction of like, oh, we need to find Prentice a room. I guess we'll kick out Mr. Haggerty. It's like Mr. Haggerty shows up. It's like, well, we got to give him a room.
Give him Mr. Prentice's room. What? Let's just go back and forth forever. On top of all that, I feel like nothing that any character does follows logically from what's going on in the scene. They just like do a thing because the script said to do it.
Yeah.
And so it takes a really long time to figure out people's motivations for things because they have no motivation for them until the payoff happens. And you're like, I guess that's why that thing happened and then the other thing happened. So now we see Joseph at night in his room holding $100 bills to the lamp and poking holes in them with a safety pin. I have to assume this is a measure to check for counterfeiting, but I've never seen this and I couldn't verify it online. I also don't know where he got this cash. Like, this is just the cash that he brought and now he's poking holes in it? Or did she pay him for the ride?
Why is he doing this?
I don't know.
He is just a random stranger who's an engineer, who she just brought with her.
And
this doesn't make any sense.
In his money.
What is he doing?
I don't know.
Well, I mean...
Like I said, there's a payoff later that you can retroactively explain things, but for now it's like there would be no motivation for him to do this.
Exactly. There's no. It's not a something you would do in case someone tries to steal from someone from the hotel tries to steal your money.
Yeah.
Like this, it makes. I couldn't figure it out. Like,
yeah. On top of that, after he pokes the holes in this money, instead of like putting it back in his wallet or somewhere safe, he just throws it behind the headboard. Like that's his plan. Like, I really don't want anyone to steal this money, but I'm going to put it where literally anybody could take it and it's cash, so it's completely untraceable. Good luck. His phone rings and he rolls over to answer it. Someone's calling for Prentice, the other man they sent to this room, but Joseph doesn't correct the confused caller. They direct Joseph's attention to a sample in a bedside drawer. He pulls out a small bag and dumps a handful of emeralds on the nightstand. The voice tells him the full delivery will include 6,000 carats at $500 a carat, or $3 million. They tell him that they'll have more samples to show him tomorrow at Playa Soledad at 9 o'clock. We cut to a party that night, and Holbrook is greeted by Omar Sharif playing Meno Argenti. And we learn Holbrook's first name.
Liliana, you look divine.
No one will say Liliana again for the rest of the film. Not even him. Joe watches Holbrook and Argenti at a dinner party from across the hotel's pool area. Another woman drinking alone spots Joe and asks his situation, and he admits he is recently divorced but poor, presumably to shut her up. But it seems like a big part of the plot is also that this man, in case you didn't know because you wouldn't, he is incredibly attractive and incredibly charismatic, and literally every woman he walks past is obsessed with him. So when he asks for things like, oh, can I get a towel? Can I get an extra room? Can you send this to somebody? People are always like, of course for you, sir. Anything you want for you because you're so hot.
For you, senor, it will be a pleasure.
When Holbrook passes by close enough to talk to, Joe invites her to lunch and she shoots him down. The woman drinking alone calls him out.
Isn't she a little out of your price range?
Not for long.
I thought they were implying that she was a prostitute.
No, she's been sitting at the table with Omar Sharif. Everybody here knows that she's super important.
Yeah, well, I understand, but I thought she was, that he bought her. Like, and so, like, it was known. This comment, for like half the film, I thought she was a prostitute.
Oh, no, I because she
like
comes from a wealthy
high-end.
family also. So she's a trophy wife. She's not a prostitute.
Yeah, but
it was a weird phrase.
They don't explain that for
Sure,
quite a
that's
while.
That's true.
Yeah, it was just weird for the woman to say out of your price range versus
I thought it was more a comment on his poorness than on her richness.
I think it is, but at the same time, they don't explain who anybody is in this film. And so I'm like, well, she's got a lot of money, but I think she's just a really high-end call girl.
Yeah. He could have turned back to her and said, like, well, what are you going for? Back inside the hotel, he sets a scam in motion, intending to turn a profit on the emerald sample he was just mistakenly given. He sends the sample package of emeralds to Mr. Prentice's new room and calls him to repeat the same conversation he had, but inflating the price from $500 a carat to $600 a carat, equating to a price of $600,000 over the 6,000 carat delivery.
See, this was already the wrong move.
Yeah, and also we spread these two calls out so far that you might not notice that he increased the price at all.
Yeah.
So it's just like, wait, why did he give the emeralds away that he just got for free? Why didn't you just take them and sell them immediately?
Yeah, that is like exactly. You take the emeralds, you just check out of the hotel.
That's your
and
tip. Leave.
And I was also waiting for most of the film for them to explain why he makes this turn here, because I was like, oh, he's not just an engineer.
Oh, he makes the turn here because of what she said. Isn't she out of your price range? Because he's like,
okay, but
if I get rich, she'll go out with
thinking
me.
she's a prostitute.
Right,
so
yeah.
that's not occurring to me that he's trying to make them.
Well, for you, the reason that he's doing it now, he's like, right, I can maybe save up for a BJ if I do a prank on this guy with his emeralds. The next morning, he drives out to Playa Soledad as requested. I'm not clear his total plan. Is he going to go and pose as Prentice and pay with no money for a full collection of emeralds and then turn around and sell them to Mr. Prentice for $100 inflation on every carat? It's like, you need upfront money to do that, sir.
I assume that he was going to pretend to be some sort of middleman, I'll
collect them and you'll get the money later today or something like that. And then you go kill Mr. Prentice wherever the fuck, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently these guys made another connection later on.
Yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, they seem to have caught on to the scam, and the emerald dealers and Mr. Prentice arrive simultaneously to open fire on Joe. With nowhere else to turn, Joe dives into the ocean to swim away and is shot once in his escape. When he's far enough from shore to be safe from bullets, a speedboat swings by and a rope is thrown overboard to collect him. Luckily for him, it's Holbrook. She fishes him out of the water, and in the market later, she helps tend to his flesh wound.
Again, such a coincidence.
Well, she explains why she was here, but right now it makes no sense.
But even her explanation doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. She points out that his injury was his own fault, and he sarcastically apologizes if his actions hurt her business. But I have no idea what he's assuming her business is. It's like, she doesn't own the hotel. What are you talking about? I'm sorry if I hurt your business. Again,
I thought she was a prostitute. And this was infringing on the dudes that she services at the hotel.
I guess.
There's only one difference between you and me. You just happen to be in a higher price range, that's all.
So maybe he did think she was a prostitute, but what is he doing that's at all considered prostitution? He's just swindling a guy out of emeralds. That has nothing to do with selling yourself for money in any way. She knew how to find him here in the water because she overheard people taking bets about a foolish gringo trying to intercept an emerald deal and whether or not he would be killed.
But why would you think that being in a speedboat of people meeting on the beach where a boat cannot go would be helpful?
And also, who's having this conversation so loud that they're like, oh my God, there's this illicit emerald exchange happening on the beach tomorrow at this specific time and place.
Yeah.
And this one guy found out about it. He's going to try and take the emeralds. So let's just take bets, and then maybe a bunch of us will just go out and watch this guy get murdered on the shore.
So Holbrook's idea is like, I'm going to rent a speedboat, and hopefully he swims out into the ocean so I can pick him up.
Well, it's weird, too, because one of them even says, like, drive him into the waves or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, was your plan to kill him by drowning, or why wouldn't you want him to stay on the beach?
Is he trying to capture the last unicorn and just has a Red Bull chasing them into the ocean?
What is going on? They drive together to Holbrook's home on the edge of town, and she informs her servants that Joe will be staying here a while. He's invited to make himself comfortable. That night, she wanders the property in the dark and picks up a photo album to look at pictures of her and her sister Carrie together. Carrie is the girl we saw killed by military officials in the cold open. She wanders into Joe's room while he's sleeping to talk with him. She confesses to Joe that her sister was reported missing on a trip to Colombia. We cut right to the next morning as she shares more of her family history. Her parents are rich. Her sister was always trying to outdo her. When she moved to Mexico, Carrie made the next step to Colombia. Joe says that her family isn't hurting for money, and she claims money isn't everything. He admits that if he were that rich, he wouldn't feel self-conscious about being with her.
You feel insecure now?
In one way. But in another, I feel good enough.
Which way is that?
This way.
And this could not be a less convincing kiss from these two. It's clear that they hate each other already. He leans forward to kiss her, and after a few seconds, she tips them both into the pool, and they rise from the water laughing. Holbrook stops laughing when she notices Meno, Omar Sharif's character, standing beside the pool watching them. She quickly climbs out of the pool to greet him and sets him up with a room for the night since he was not expected here today. When she goes inside, Meno stops to chat with Joe. He asks how long Joe intends to stay.
Why?
I like to know better the man I find in the early hours of the morning with my fiancée.
Later, Joe confronts Holbrook about leaving out this detail, but she insists the man is powerful in Colombia and may have connections to help her locate her sister.
Okay, I'm pretty sure she said her sister went missing like a week ago.
Yeah.
So did she literally
How quickly
just
did she...
get engaged to this dude?
Yeah.
Like,
well, we'll find out later. No, she didn't.
yeah, so this
That's the other problem.
I
Yeah.
don't understand. This doesn't make any sense why she's doing this because her sister just went missing.
Yeah. I fully expected Joe to say something like, I thought you said women were into younger men. We cut to Holbrook and Meno standing beside each other at a firing range while Joe watches.
Now, this is her house.
Yeah, it's a firing range in her basement.
Okay.
They each take their shots, with Holbrook scoring slightly worse than her fiancée, and Meno spins around to point his empty gun at Joe as a threatening joke. When Holbrook leaves them alone together, Meno asks about Joe's electronics expertise and admits he may have use for Joe's engineering skills. His property in Bogota makes use of world-class surveillance technology, and he invites Joe for a tour sometime.
You should come and see it and maybe work for me.
What makes you think I'm good enough?
I'm incredibly intuitive when it comes to judging a man. I'm seldom wrong. Come see everything. Perhaps you can improve on it. I pay handsomely, and you could even steal a little.
What is Omar Sharif's motivation for inviting him up there?
I think it's just a keep your enemies closer situation. He thinks that his wife's going to leave him for this guy, so he wants to keep him around and figure out what his story is and maybe set him up in a trap.
Okay.
I think that's part of why he invites him to steal some of his emeralds. He's like, try and take my ship. See what happens if you try to take my ship. Left alone in the room, Joe prepares to try his hand at the shooting gallery, but Holbrook interrupts for a more honest exhibition of her skills. She effortlessly outscores Meno's performance.
You let him win. Why?
He needs to win, and I need to let him.
And what if your sister's dead and he's responsible?
Then I'll kill him.
I do like the idea that she went upstairs and she was just like, I really hope that I can go back down there alone with Joe because I need him to know that I'm better at shooting. Like, it's really bothering me that I just lost on purpose. She suggests they go to bed, and Joe assumes he's being invited to her room, but then she closes the door in his face and he retires to his own room. In the morning, he learns Meno has left and hopes they will both join him in Colombia. Joe says that all his stuff is back in Las Hadas, but Holbrook says he was never technically registered there, which might explain why two people were booked in the same room, but he interprets her words to mean that he should consider everything he left there, apparently around $2,000 worth of stuff, a wash. It's just like, you're not getting that stuff back, so come with me to Colombia or go home broke. She starts to teach him about the emerald industry, and we're treated to documentary footage of the process by which emeralds are mined in Colombia. The country used to mine the gems themselves, but insane amounts of corruption forced them to sell the mining duty to a private party. Argenti owns all the country's emerald mining operations and has been able to work more efficiently than the government's previous efforts. She tells him the going price in the region is $25,000 a carat, a significant markup on the $6,000 a carat we heard earlier. We cut to Colombia now, I think? Who knows? The film doesn't bother to keep us informed with screen country titles like they did at the start of the film.
Well, I assumed that they were already in Colombia because Meno is there.
Right. No, he came to Mexico to visit her.
But he can't go to Mexico.
That's true.
The rules say.
Where is Las Hadas? I don't know where Las Hadas is.
I don't know either.
Can we Google Las Hadas and see if that's a place? Maybe it's also in Colombia. Maybe we were in Colombia the whole time.
It's a city in Mexico.
No. Well.
What? So he already broke the rule.
Yeah.
That we haven't established yet. Maybe it's okay as long as you don't break the rule until after you explain it so people can't even think back to it. That's so weird.
3 screenwriters, everybody.
4.
And a book to base it on.
Yeah. We see Holbrook strolling the palatial grounds of Argenti's estate, and then we cut to Joe exploring sleeping quarters. I would have guessed this was his room, but there's a lot of personal effects littering the space, and none of them are his. He finds medicine, small pouches full of things we never see, and an underwear drawer loaded with handguns, ammo, and cash. Later, it's made clear this was Holbrook's room, but he walks around it the same way he did in his own hotel room in Las Hadas. The clothing in the drawer does appear to be female undergarments, though, so I guess that's our hint that this isn't his room, but why wouldn't we see him sneak into a bedroom off a hallway to indicate that whatever he's doing is meant to be discreet?
Right.
Joe holds the cash from the underwear drawer up to a light source and sees a pinprick through Ben Franklin's head. So either he brought his own money from Las Hadas to Colombia, or someone stole his money and hid it in that drawer. If these people are insane emerald trillionaires, I doubt they'd be mugging Joe for a few $100, so I don't get the significance of the pinhole. Now, we cut to the lobby of Argenti's private emerald mining operation. Argenti gives Joe a tour of the emerald cutting laboratory. Joe is introduced to a man named Jaap.
Jaap.
I'll say Jaap. He's an old acquaintance of Argenti's who worked first as a diamond cutter. It's been over a decade now since Argenti switched from diamonds to emeralds, and it's clear that Jaap misses the work with diamonds.
Weight for weight and quality for quality. The emerald is better.
No.
I watched this movie in a couple different settings.
Yeah.
And at this point of the movie, I had switched to headphones.
Sure.
And I was noticing that the movie was mixed in mono.
Oh, really?
Or I was only receiving audio from the right channel.
It was impossible to hear what they were saying.
And the
film.
subtitles, there's
Yeah.
only one subtitle track for this movie, and it's like 27 milliseconds or 27,000 milliseconds off.
But yeah, it was really annoying to have like headphones on and only hearing sound from one side, because that makes you think like there's something wrong with your ear.
Right. You start tipping one direction. Now he takes Joe upstairs to his emerald vault on a massive stage that looks very Ken Adam-y, but I forgot to check if he was involved with this film. The ceilings are decorated with hexagonal tubes hanging down like stalactites in bunches. The vault in the center of the room has slanted steel doors with green accent lights. Argenti brags that there's no other way to reach this floor other than the elevator.
No fire escape?
No stairs. We are completely isolated from above and below.
This is the top floor of the building, and Argenti thinks he's brilliant for this inversion of the usual underground vault system. Seems like you're much more exposed up here to me. I thought that was the whole point of putting them underground in the first place.
Now I will show you how I, Meno Sebastiano Argenti, am the most fortunate of men.
This is the weirdest set of cuts.
Right.
But I get why later.
Yeah. But for now.
But yeah,
why?
now it just looks like really bad editing.
Yeah. Without entering any kind of combination or key, the door to the vault slides open to welcome them inside. As they step into the chamber, dozens of shelves slide open to reveal thousands of cut and polished emeralds.
They kind of cheat a little bit. There's a lot of mirrors
Yeah.
on the walls, like
To make it look like there's a lot more than there are.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's clear that they are mirrors, and you can see their reflections in it. But there's also mirrors on each shelf, so
Right.
it looks like there's a second shelf behind that row, and there's not.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of emeralds. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's not.
I mean, you got to
nearly-
leave room for the next shelves. You know?
Yeah.
He's clearly thinking ahead. Argenti estimates there's around $70 million worth of gems in this vault, and behind them, the head of his security team arrives, Jochim Kellerman, played by Philip Stone. Once it closes up again, Argenti explains the vault was constructed of cadmium-based steel, and no torch could possibly cut through it. But somebody cut these doors to install them, right?
Right.
Something could do it, I bet.
They just had to pour the cadmium into a mold.
They just had to find a cadmium steel in the shape of that door naturally. The men moved out of an armored door up onto the roof, even though seconds ago, Argenti said there's no other way to reach the top floor from above or below. The emeralds are evidently delivered to the vault by helicopter. Argenti points out that even if someone were to land here and collect his emeralds by evading his aircraft detection systems, there's no way back down to the ground, because this is 1982 and parachutes had not yet been invented.
Also, it's also very nice that there's no cameras on the roof and there's no cameras
in the
on the
vault.
vault.
Where are your fucking cameras, sir? Confusingly, though, even as he says this, Joe is walking past one of those suspended scaffolding platforms for window washers to move up and down the sides of a building. Joe is given more time to walk the grounds and evaluate the weaknesses of the system. We cut to a grassy garden on Argenti's property where he plays Frisbee with the help. It's like, hey, dude, you want to play Frisbee with me while I wait?
Yeah.
Sure, sir. General Bottaro, who is credited for some reason as General Martinez, and Holbrook appear, and the general says Holbrook told him about Joe's interest in local ancient excavations. I would guess archaeological digs and not emerald mines, but they don't specify. Joe plays along so they can go on a tour of the site together. The general offers them military protection from local bandits, but Holbrook claims Joe is a crack shot and the protection is unnecessary. Holbrook drives their jeep far off the beaten path to a church in the mountains and learns from a priest here that her sister has in fact been killed. She is shown her sister's grave, and the priest blames her death on the emerald miners. He hands her Carrie's half-burnt passport and turns to leave. Joe joins Holbrook inside the church to pray, and Joe gives her permission to mourn her sister with tears. He holds her while she cries. Later, we see them driving again, and they're ambushed by Miguel and the so-called bandits. Miguel recognizes her immediately and greets her with a smile. How often does she come down here and visit her sister and her revolutionary friends?
Right.
I also don't understand how she knows about these guys but didn't talk to them the second her sister went missing.
Yeah, for more information. She asks if there's anything she can do to help, and Miguel tells her that their trip into the mountains today will go faster with an extra Jeep, and she's quick to offer it to them. I thought she was literally just giving them the Jeep to take and they were going to walk back.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I guess they're just offering a ride because they end up with this Jeep back at the end of the day.
And then they don't take another Jeep that they find later.
Right,
But-
yeah. As they march through the hills, Miguel tells his origin story. His parents moved to America to give him and his siblings a better life, but Miguel grew quickly disenchanted with the perils of capitalism. In his teenage years, he bombed a draft board office to protect American children from involuntary enlistment, which just means that more kids got taken from another neighborhood. It's not like they were like, never mind, we don't need those 5,000 now.
So when they get the ride in the Jeep, Joe's like saying like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, this seems super dangerous what you're doing.
They're like, don't do this. You're just, and she's like, well, I'm doing it for my sister. I'm doing it for the cause. And I'm like, what cause?
We haven't established it.
There is no cause. We don't know about any cause. And
so far, the cause is other people who have been killed doing the same thing.
Yeah,
but we don't know why the first group got killed.
What is your goal here?
Yeah. I guess Miguel does kind of touch on it here that he says that these emerald mines have kind of strangled the country and the money is being given to the upper echelon of instead of being shared with the people. It's kind of the same problem that Armand Desanti had in Love and Money, where he's like, the leader of the country shouldn't be making these deals with private businessmen. He should be sharing his resources with his people.
But I'm really frustrated because they barely touch on this cause, but it seems to be her motivation. The second her sister's dead, the only motivation that she has here is this cause, and we barely understand it.
Yeah, because she's never really asked to spell it out. And I guess she just must have been obsessive pen pals with her sister and is fully up to date on all of their operations. I mean, she knew to find Miguel here somehow. Since bombing the draft office, Miguel has strived to make a real difference in people's lives through revolutionary action. Joe asks how they fund their operations, and Miguel leads him to a nearby coffee farmer. I think his name is Lucho in the credits. Lucho. I don't know if they say it in the movie. But his family ran this coffee farm for generations. Apparently, the man is literally just finding emeralds in the dirt around his farm somehow. Like, he doesn't have to mine them. They're just on the surface in the dirt. The farmer pays the revolutionaries in emeralds to pick all his coffee beans for him. The next day, we watch revolutionaries working on the coffee farm, digging up bundles of raw emeralds. Miguel tells Joe they can make around $300 a carat from what they collect here, which is an even bigger nut punch from the $6,000 a carat, down from the $25,000 a carat that Holbrook quoted in her Emerald Mining 101 lecture. So I think what that means is these guys have to sell to whoever they can.
Mm-hmm.
And those low-class emerald miners operating out of the hotel can get about $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
But because Omar Sharif's Meno character has access to the entire world's emerald market, he can sell for much more because it's a much bigger pain in the ass for them to come here and get it.
He sets the price, really. Yeah, and these are also raw, uncut. Like, Meno is selling fully cut, polished gems.
And he also, when he's walking them through the floor where they're cutting all the emeralds, he says, out of every 10 that we get, like 6 are great, 3 are excellent, and 1 are among the best in the world. And it's like, so literally the minimum here is great, which means that there's a lot of emeralds he's not even bothering with. So maybe those are the ones that these smaller dealers are fighting over. Miguel is distracted from his conversation with Joe by a passing worker. He confronts the man and tells him he looks sick. The man denies any illness, so Miguel forcibly checks his mouth and finds raw emeralds inside. Clearly unable to trust this man, he's led away by more of their team, and a gunshot rings out, implying the penalty for stealing from the revolution is death.
You see? He got the disease of the fat bellies, stealing from his brothers. We must stop the sickness now before it spreads and kills all of us.
That night, Joe presents the farmer with a gift of alcohol for them to share, and the man tries to refuse the gift.
It is the custom of my country. The taller guy brings the bottle.
Gracias. Siéntese.
Joe suggests a toast to the emeralds, but the farmer cannot. He considers them a curse on his land because if the government ever found out how common they were here, they would certainly strip him of his family business.
I do not know in your country. In this country, the devil is green. Entiende?
It is true. In my country, the devil is green, too.
The farmer offers up a leaf of a cocaine plant and instructs Joe to put it in his mouth to chew on.
I was like, hey, I've done that.
Cocaine leaf? Have you? Oh, when you were in South America.
Peru,
yeah. Yeah, you had like a whole operation down there for a while.
Oh, for a
until
little while,
they
yeah.
found out about it and you had to flee the country.
This isn't going to be in the show.
No, we'll
right?
cut this.
All right.
Joe asks a bit about the coffee business and learns that each tree produces a pound of coffee at a time. He tells the farmer he could make a generous profit selling the beans in New York.
But I have no friend in New York, senor.
You do now.
Suddenly, Joe is like an expert on importing coffee.
His name is Joe.
Yeah, cup of Joe's. That's what he would call it.
So frustrated at this man who seems to just randomly do anything that presents itself to him.
But when he talks about his, past financial endeavors at the beginning, he makes it sound like that. He's like, oh, I started selling mung beans for a while and I had a harvest dye on me and I did this other thing. And it's like, he just jumps from random job to random job. That's how he picked Mexico completely at random to move to. I also can't tell if his job is literally like driving to airfields and telling people what's wrong with their helicopters. Because why did he even go to that place and talk to that guy? He didn't know that there was a passenger waiting for a ride. None of the motivations in the entire film make any sense at all. To celebrate their new friendship, the men take turns spitting alcohol through a lantern on the table and cause a big billowing flame. The time has come to leave the farm, and Joe salutes the farmer on his way out.
When they're leaving, Miguel hands Joe a canteen full of water.
Yeah.
And he just starts dumping it all over his head. It's like, that's for drinking.
Yeah. And for everybody else here. There's 30 people on this Jeep. On their way down the mountain, their Jeep is intercepted by the same military official that killed Carrie and her friends. Just before the car is stopped, most of the revolutionaries pile into the bushes on the side of the road to evade detection. The man who shot Carrie approaches Holbrook with questions. He asks them both for identification, and when he sees the name Holbrook in her passport, he seems to recognize it from Carrie's. He also spots a pair of loaded handguns in their center console and decides that these people are not the innocent lost visitors they claim. The military official walks back to his own Jeep and at the last second spins around to shoot Holbrook, but she gets him in the heart first. More gunfire erupts from the bushes to kill the rest of the military men.
I don't know why he wasn't immediately suspicious of their military Jeep.
Yeah. Miguel and his friends take cash and weapons from the military Jeep and disappear back into the bushes while Holbrook and Joe continue down the mountain in their own vehicle. But you're right. There's a Jeep here with keys in it. You're revolutionaries. Why didn't you take this? First of all. Second of all, it's weird that here, halfway through the movie, Holbrook avenges her sister's murder and never gets to find out that this is the guy who killed her sister. Like you would expect that here is where Miguel would say, that's the lieutenant that did it. You just killed the guy who did it. You've achieved the vengeance that you are probably going to thirst after for the rest of your life because you'll never know if you killed the right person.
I mean, unless, because him knowing that it's her based on her name is a little bit of a clue, but nothing for certain.
Right. But we saw him shoot Carrie, so we know that it was him. But it's just weird that she never gets to find that out concretely because you would expect that that's her whole driving force here now.
No. The cause.
Oh, the cause. Right. As they pass through a small village, their path is blocked by another military Jeep, and they are both dragged into cells at Barbosa prison against their will.
But why?
Because they have a military Jeep and they're suspected of having killed the lieutenant on the road.
They got the word that these guys are killed.
Yeah.
Everyone was dead.
Yeah.
Somebody
How did
had
they
to come
even
across
find those
them.
bodies?
Yeah.
They should have loaded them all up in the Jeep, put it in neutral, and shoved it down the mountain. From his cell that night, Joe looks out the window as another Barbosa prisoner is dumped into a pen full of ravenous pigs and eaten alive. Do you guys recall the last time we saw someone eaten alive by ravenous pigs?
Evil Speed?
That's right. The next day, Joe is escorted across the Barbosa prison yard and spots Holbrook sitting in the back seat of a car. She looks like she's been up all night and potentially stripped because she's wrapped in a blanket. I think she's definitely naked and probably assaulted here. Joe climbs into the car with her, and the door is closed behind him before they're driven away. General Bataro has apparently orchestrated their release from prison, and they're dropped off together at Argenti's home. Holbrook vaguely references having been raped by the Barbosa guards, but we never come back to that detail. Like, Argenti knows that they got arrested on this road trip.
Right.
And he knows that these people raped his fiance, and he's not going to go back and raze the place to the ground. What is going on? Why is this not a bigger deal?
So he's saving them?
He's saving them from the prison because somehow word got to him that they were captured together and arrested. And I presume they didn't mention, oh, and by the way, we also took turns with your fiance like all night long. But anyway, they're here. So if you want them back, just come on and pick them up. It's like, I would have sent her back in a fancy dress, not wrapped in a tarp.
But also, why would he want Wiley?
Yeah, why not
For the
just
same
leave
reason that he asked him to come to Colombia in the first place. I mean, it saves time to just leave him in the jail. I don't know, because the plot demanded it. the answer to every question. Holbrook brainstorms out loud a way to intercept the transportation of Argenti's emeralds and suggests somehow boarding the helicopter used to deliver them. Joe thinks that plan makes even less sense than breaking into the vault itself. He tells her she's crazy for planning something like that, and he won't be a part of it. Then he calls her out for stealing his money. So apparently that was not his room he was looking through, and he poked the money with a hole so he could identify it if he found it in someone's possession later.
Yeah.
But who in the world does that? Who expects in advance that they will be robbed and will ever be in a position to check someone else's cash and confirm it was stolen from them?
Mm-hmm.
It works for the movie because it was written to work for the movie, but you would never be given this opportunity to confirm someone else's money was yours.
Well, the only way to do it these days would be Where's George?
Yeah.
You guys remember Where's George?
Oh my gosh, yeah. What a great website. I mean, couldn't he just as easily have like written down the serial number or something? I don't understand the point of poking the hole in it, but whatever.
It's because he wants money babies.
Money babies. I get it. You got to poke the holes. She took it to strand him financially in this country because he seemed like a useful partner in her scheme.
All right, I was wrong. I had no right to take your money. I just wanted you here.
Why? Because you think I'll do anything you want?
No! Because I think I love you.
And again, I don't believe her at all. She has zero chemistry with this guy for the whole film, and they seem constantly at each other's throats. Joe takes the bait anyways and starts dreaming up a plan to break into the vault. Later, he shares the plot with Miguel so that we can hear it spelled out.
So she says she loves him, and then he comes around and says, I bet you'd love me more if I got you into that vault.
Right.
Because I feel like he believes she's playing him.
Right.
But then she's like, no.
Well, she doesn't say no. Doesn't she say like, I would be indebted to, or I would appreciate it forever or something like that?
But it was just like.
It's not saying, yes, I would.
Yeah.
Joe's plan is this. He will reach out to an unintroduced character for equipment they can use to land on the roof of Argenti's building and work their way down. We cut to a plane landing on a runway, and John Larroquette as Claude steps out of it in a cowboy hat with a southern drawl. We cut back to the room at Argenti's concession where people are cutting emeralds. He presents Jaap, his senior gem cutter, with a diamond that he has kept hidden for years. He asks Jaap to design a wedding ring with this diamond in the center, surrounded by emeralds, for him to marry Holbrook. Jaap reminds him that he shouldn't be playing with diamonds and that he is the equivalent of a king here in Colombia, but Argenti can't stand being banned for life from his homeland in Europe. It seems Argenti is only marrying Holbrook for her father's political power. He assumes the elite ring of diamond dealers who banned him from their ranks will welcome him back on account of his father-in-law's political connections. Jaap assures Argenti he is mistaken and the diamond people will never forgive him. We cut to a helicopter delivery at the top of the skyscraper. A bag of emeralds is lowered on a line to a waiting guard who brings the collection inside. Down at street level, Claude watches the delivery and signals Joe through a storefront window once the handoff is made. Evidently, Larroquette's Claude character is Joe's friend that can get them on the roof.
I seriously thought I missed something at this point.
That this character is being introduced for the first time.
I was like, was he like earlier? Was he with the helicopter? I
literally backed it up. That I was like, was that him at the beginning who didn't know what was wrong with the helicopter?
It wasn't.
Nope, not him.
I could not figure out who this guy was, and like I felt like we should have known some backstory here.
But he's clearly speaking with like a southern drawl here, and that character looked like Rene Aubergenois, and he had like long hair. It was clearly not Larroquette.
It's very weird.
Very strange. Holbrook's job in this operation is to distract Argenti from the building and to get a recording of the man saying his own name, which Joe has determined during his tour of the vault is what caused the safe to open. I would probably have assumed the entire sentence was the key phrase and not just this word, because he probably says his name a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to accidentally blurt out my entire password to people.
My voice is my passport. Verify me.
Exactly. We cut to a backyard card game between Holbrook and Argenti. He informs her of his plans to announce their engagement at a party tonight. In response, she tricks him into saying his full name by asking what his middle initial stands for.
What does the S stand for? Salvatore?
Sebastiano.
Meno Sebastian Argenti.
Meno Sebastiano Argenti.
The camera zooms out from this conversation, and we see Joe, hiding, with air quotes, in a tree, recording their chat on a film camera. And when we see this footage later, it's very clear that Argenti was looking directly down the barrel of the camera.
Yeah.
Now, we cut to a laboratory somewhere, and lasers are being bounced around the room for some purpose. I never understand what this is for. We don't see lasers in the rest of the film. He's also like attaching things to things and spinning them around, and it's like, we see this tool later. I don't know what this is doing.
I get what it does, but when and how do they have access to a lab and manufacturing to produce items that they need? Because I'm assuming the laser was probably to laser cut something.
But we don't see them cut anything with the laser.
And Miguel is there.
Right.
For some reason.
And Miguel is just like looking at everything like, what the fuck is this for?
My only assumption is that Miguel is financing what he needs for this operation. He's putting up the collateral money for
He's
the
like,
job.
we haven't had a Jeep in 6 months. We've been walking up this mountain. But yeah, I'll buy you your $18,000 laser.
Well, but Holbrook has money. But it's just weird that she suddenly has a laboratory full of all the things they need to break into this place.
When Joe gets back to Argenti's home that night, he sees his things packed up on the porch and rushes past Argenti's henchmen to demand an explanation from the man himself. Argenti says his services are no longer needed, and $1,000 has been packed in his suitcase with his things. Joe demands $10,000 and explains he discovered a flaw in the electronics securing the Emerald collection. Argenti offers him 24 hours to prove it, and does absolutely nothing to prevent it.
Yeah. He didn't alert anybody that, in the next 24 hours, someone's going to attempt to break into my vault.
Now we cut to that night in a courtyard near Argenti's building. Miguel, Claude, and Joe are all dressed in flight suits with miniature hot air balloons attached to their backs, or as I like to call them, notoriously unsteerable airships.
Yeah.
They float around for a while to a really terrible song. I hope this is a Razzie-winning song. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I'll be floating on a cloud of pearls, floating on a cloud of pearls.
These are apparently called Lindstrand cloud hoppers. They were invented in '79 and just barely certified for use in time for the production to use them.
And then swiftly uncertified.
Only 2 of these 3 people died. We cut to Argenti's backyard pool area, and he and Holbrook show up dressed for a party when Argenti admits no one's coming tonight. The real party is tomorrow.
I merely wanted to show you what will be yours when you marry me.
I haven't said I'd marry you.
But you must.
Which is the first we're hearing that they are not, in fact, engaged. And it's weird she didn't explain that to Joe when he asked about it earlier. Like, they've been alone so many times, and instead of saying, he's important in Bogota, she could have said, we're not engaged. He keeps hitting on me, we're not engaged.
Yeah.
She asks why they must get married, and he's weirdly honest with her. He shows her a bracelet that indicates his former membership in the International Diamond Consortium. Over a decade ago, $10 million worth of diamonds were stolen from the consortium, and he bought them from the thief as a collector's item and later sold them piecemeal for a profit. When the consortium found out what he was doing, he was banned from the group for life. The usual penalty is death. His mercy came with strings, though. He was forced to live out his years in South America.
I could continue to live as long as I never set foot outside this continent.
But how would they ever know?
Or Mexico.
Yeah. Mexico, sometimes they're confused about where the lines are. He presents her with an impractically large diamond ring, like think ring pop size. It's probably made from a part of that same stolen collection.
Except when you suck on it, you just cut your lips.
Right, yeah. I also think that this ring by itself would be worth more than $10 million. Like, $10 million in diamonds is like weirdly small.
This is like about when Ben Stiller shows Vince Vaughn, but you've never seen 20 grand before. Wow.
It's just like 2 tiny stacks of hundreds.
Yeah.
Holbrook gathers his meaning that her father's connections would get Argenti back in the good graces of the consortium, and is doubly insulted that the man she has no interest in marrying anyway is also not actually interested in marrying her. Argenti explains the benefits of a loveless marriage. It could be an open one, and she wouldn't have to break things off with Joseph Wiley. She reminds Argenti of her issues with his indiscriminate killing of local revolutionaries, including her sister.
She consorted with scum.
And that was reason to kill her?
Argenti puts Carrie's death on par with suicide, since she was so careless in the face of a power she didn't understand.
And also, I mean, I guess he is, like, are we to assume that he's running the military police and says, kill anyone who tries to steal
I guess. Yeah. I mean, that's how he's done a better job of running the emerald mines than the government did before him.
I mean, Job says he is a king here.
Jaap.
Jaap. That's the one.
Joppy Jorp Jop.
I was thinking was a Popeye character named Jupe?
Yeah, there you go. Argenti demands an answer on his proposal now, and she promises one in the morning. After another verse of this shitty cloud floating song, the balloon boys are somehow able to pull off a precision landing on the roof of Argenti's Emerald Exchange.
So I got really mad later
yeah,
when I realized...
I think we're going to have the same point here in a minute.
you let the balloons go?
Yeah, what are you doing? Jochim Kellerman arrives to the building's lobby and sits in with the team watching the surveillance monitors. It's clear the filmmakers thought these personal hot air balloons were very cool and deserved 7 or 8 minutes of screen time. Amazingly, no one thought to install cameras on the roof of the building, and so the men go undetected here. Joe and Miguel, that is. Claude's work is done, and he lifts off to float away without them. Hey, if that was an option the whole time, maybe just wait here for a second and we could all float the fuck away together. Miguel and Joe apply simple suction handles to an exterior window of the floor containing the vault and effortlessly lift the pane out of the frame, like it wasn't even installed or sealed. Inside the room, Joe constructs a projection system.
Oh, it's important to note that for some reason, the vault floor and the floor above it share a window.
Right.
But
there is no floor above it. We've established that there is no floor above it.
Well, yeah, because he said there's the sky is above it,
right,
above the vault. But we see that there's like 3 other floors.
Yeah, because every time we see this open missing window pane, there's a bunch of floors above it. Inside the room, Joe constructs a projection system for the footage he collected of Argenti's backyard card game. In sync with the film projection, he plays audio of the conversation between Argenti and Holbrook. Miguel holds up the screen, and we see Argenti's face repeating his name.
Meno Sebastiano Argenti.
When the doors don't move, Joe plays the clip again and then does a quick reassessment and recalls exactly where Argenti was standing when he opened the doors with his voice. He points Miguel to where Argenti was standing when he said the words.
Meno Sebastiano Argenti.
The vault slides open, and the burglars rush in to collect their score. 70 million in emeralds. Or it would be if they took everything, but for some reason they're leaving a lot here.
Yeah. Also, it seems like they're all in like these little inset things, so they have to like pluck them out one at a time.
But it's like foam. You just push into it and grab the thing out. It's not like a
part of the security system, Richard.
Yeah.
Slow them down.
There should be needles on either side of the foam so that when you go to reach one out, you just stab yourself in the middle of your finger. They climb back out the window they entered through and then attach their wires to the window cleaner winch to rappel down the building.
So this is where the fan blade comes into play.
Okay.
So I thought they would just use the window cleaning winch to
go
lower
down,
themselves down.
But those things also don't go the whole way to the bottom.
Yeah. So instead, he has somehow he got the measurements to apply this fan, so it's creating resistance
to slow them down at the bottom.
Yeah, no, just to slow their descent. It's like a governor, essentially.
So they don't go full velocity.
Correct.
Down. A truck of allies pulls up underneath them, and Joe and Miguel prepare their descent. Insanely, in addition to not having security cameras on the roof or vault floors of the building, there are none around the building to notice a box truck pulling up onto the sidewalk to retrieve these burglars. What the fuck are all the TVs in the security room for? Did Kellerman convince Argenti that all the burglars would certainly enter the building through the stalls in the ladies' room? Joe jumps first and quickly lowers himself to an awning above the truck. He jumps down and sends his harness back up for Miguel to take down. Inexplicably, when Miguel descends, the wire isn't long enough to reach more than halfway down, even though we just saw this wire reach all the way to the street.
Yeah.
We literally see it run out. He runs out of wire. How does this wire shrink between the two of them jumping? Miguel knows there's no way out of this situation and waves for his partners in the street to leave without him. When Joe gets to Holbrook, she's horrified to learn Miguel has been left stranded, but there was nothing they could do.
I don't understand why Miguel just hangs there.
Until the morning, several hours later?
Yeah, he seems to make no attempt. I mean, with a rope,
maybe try to pull yourself up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could rappel, put your legs on the glass and kind of walk yourself. I mean, it'd still be very exhausting.
But it's an option other than waiting 3 hours for them to cut you down.
Exactly.
As Miguel dangles there, he's spotted by Kellerman inside the building.
I regret, but me You will not take to Barbosa.
Before they can lift Miguel back up to the roof, he pulls a cord to release himself and falls dozens of stories into another truck full of glass water jugs parked below him. In the vault, Argenti is furious that Kellerman has let them rob him, but Kellerman insists it's not his fault because the girl did it. How is that not your fault? Did you or did you not let people rob me of $70 million worth of emeralds?
He's like, it was the woman. You should correct her.
Yeah. Did I say it was okay if the girl did it? I don't remember saying that. Kellerman claims to have proof it was Holbrook. If you have proof, why didn't you bring it up beforehand? Or maybe stop her while she was doing it if you think she did it.
And what proof? She didn't do it.
Yeah. I have photographs of him in a tree watching you guys play cards the other day. It's like, why do you come up to me and be like, there's a dude in that tree? Argenti returns home and finds in Holbrook's room photos of her sister and even the microphone she wore when she recorded him, now taped to a mirror in the bedroom. When Holbrook and Joe reach the coast with their score, they're stopped by men in fatigues and worry at first that they are caught. But these men are affiliated with Miguel and the revolution. They confirm Miguel is dead, but offer a better boat for Joe and Holbrook to leave in. Joe suggests leaving the emeralds with them since they seem trustworthy, but Holbrook worries these men will be killed if they're caught with the stolen gems. They dump the entire emerald collection into a wet compartment at the back of the boat for caught fish.
Yeah, I thought they were dumping it into the bilge.
I thought they were dumping it straight into the ocean at first. Holbrook says her family has a beach house they can sail to, but a military boat stops them. They're checking the boat for potential drug smuggling and find nothing but a couple loaded guns.
Would you bring your wife out here unarmed?
No. I wouldn't.
The man returns the guns, and on their way out, he sees the compartment for caught fish. For some reason, they have actual fish in the box, and the man notes that they have no fishing license.
For you it is sport. For a fisherman, it is their living. There is a heavy fine.
He flips a switch to open the compartment from below the ship and dump their payload of fish and emeralds to the bottom of the sea.
There was no reaction from them.
This time I let you off with a warning. Senor? Senora?
Well, I mean, they can't react in front of him.
Yeah.
I get that. But even after they're gone, we get no, they don't give a shit.
Like,
that
the
this
most
just
thing we get is
happened.
just like ugh, that sucks.
I mean, they don't really need the money, so I get that they don't care. But what about the cause?
Well, I guess the cause does benefit from him having been robbed and all these, like, emeralds that he's on the hook for having been stolen, because if he tries to convince investors that, oh, no, my vault was robbed, and they're like, okay, well, we don't trust you with emeralds anymore because you're going to lose that shit. They continue on to Holbrook's destination, her family beach house. Because they didn't announce the visit, the building is locked and Holbrook breaks a window to get inside. For some reason, Joe just follows her around the house complaining about shit for like 10 straight minutes. It stinks in here. Why is there a mailman? Don't play music. It's like, shut up. Who cares? Nobody knows we're here. In the middle of the night, she finds him assembling a security system. If someone opens the front door, it will activate a stereo. Holbrook seems convinced none of this is necessary and leads him to her bedroom.
How can you think of that at a time like this?
It could be our last night together.
The next morning, we see Argenti's henchman with an ear to the front door of the beach house. He pushes open a side door, and something beeps in Holbrook's bedroom, alerting Joe to their arrival. He doesn't wake her, though.
Nope.
He just gets out of the bed. When the bad guys push into the next room, it activates the stereo system. This time, Holbrook is awoken, and the men rush to silence the alarm system. Mr. Kellerman is among them and orders one of the men to turn off the fuse box to kill the alarms. When the man finds it in the closet, he throws the switch and is electrocuted. We cut to Joe and Holbrook leaving out the bedroom window to the ground outside. And it looks like, if this isn't Ann Archer, her stunt woman nearly falls off the building by accident.
Yeah.
By the time they're spotted, Joe and Holbrook are a half mile down the beach running away. Kellerman radios Argenti to announce that he has found both of them, but tosses his walkie-talkie in the sand when Argenti says not to hurt the girl. So I think we're supposed to assume that he missed this message.
Mm-hmm.
Joe hides behind an abandoned boat on the beach, and when he and the henchman realize they are both out of bullets, they switch to hand-to-hand combat. The henchman collects a discarded harpoon and swings it at Joe for a while, and then the two men peel boards off the broken boat to hit each other with. Joe knocks the henchman back, and he impales himself on the discarded harpoon and dies. Joe doesn't die, the henchman dies. Joe makes a run toward Holbrook to rescue her from Kellerman. She and Kellerman shoot directly at each other simultaneously, and by the time Joe gets there, Kellerman is dead, and she is wounded but alive. Or, I guess, She looks pretty dead, but he carries her, so he must think she's still alive. He brings her all the way back to the house and lays her across a couch. He does nothing to address her situation, so I think by now he's accepted she died in whatever this gunfight was. But when he sits down beside her, she moans quietly and takes a few breaths. She reaches into her shirt and withdraws the dart she was shot with.
The dart. Argenti wanted me alive.
Can we get out of this fantasy land now and get back to reality, please?
Right on cue, Argenti pushes open the front door of the house and tells them he expects every stone returned.
Well, we're going to need a little deep-sea diving equipment for that.
Before Argenti can do anything, Joe sees the silhouette of another mysterious person through a window shade on the porch. Argenti turns to face this mysterious stranger and refuses to address him by name for our benefit.
You? The concession? For all these years, you were the one I trusted.
Argenti is shot and collapses to the floor. Outside, we see Jaap, the diamond cutter, collecting Argenti's bracelet. He was the mole all along. Because I neglected to mention it earlier, but Argenti admits to Holbrook that even though he seems like he lives a happy life here, he feels like he's constantly under the watch of the consortium and that they're always out to get him. And it turns out he was right because they had installed Jaap in his operation to keep an eye on him. And when he started talking more and more about rejoining the consortium, they're like, all right, you got to take care of it because he's not invited back.
I warned you, Meno, so many times.
We cut back to the Brooklyn docks in New York where Joe and Holbrook are collecting a package. Joe rolls a giant burlap sack on a dolly and tosses it into the trunk of his car. He leans in to cut the bag open and sifts through coffee beans to locate a smaller package within containing raw emeralds from the farmer's land. He digs a little further and finds another cocaine leaf to chew on before packing it all away and closing the trunk again.
Probably shouldn't open up your package of illegal goods while still on the port docks.
Well, I don't know how illegal most of this is. It feels like the leaf is the worst thing. Just leave that out, and the rest of it doesn't even seem illegal.
I don't think the dogs can smell gemstones, so...
Yeah. And I also
the cocaine, for sure.
Yes. Emeralds in coffee aren't... I mean, maybe coffee is a controlled substance, but I feel like coffee is imported from Colombia pretty famously and regularly. So neither of these things seems like a big deal, but the cocaine leaf is a problem. Joe and Holbrook kiss beside the water and fade to a silhouette as a giant emerald fills the screen behind them. We are back in Maurice Binder mode as the credits roll. The end.
You know what movie did this better?
No.
Romancing the Stone.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's all the same beats. Like
some of the same people even.
It's like the sister in Colombia. It's a giant emerald. Love affair with a stranger.
El Corazon, is that the name of the?
Yeah, El Corazon, which always makes you want to think it's a ruby.
Sure,
but it's actually an emerald.
Well, it's funny because the heart of the ocean isn't a ruby either.
Yeah, but it's blue at least.
Right. What is blue? Like a heart is blue?
Well, no, because the ocean is blue.
Okay.
But just saying the heart, I just assume.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
Ocean's heart would be blue.
My point is not valid anyway.
The ocean's heart actually isn't blue. It just looks blue because it's reflecting the sky.
Didn't Maui steal it? Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say it's green. It's Tafiti.
That's
heart.
right.
Yeah.
So that's another mistake. In which movie, though?
Yeah, but I feel like all the same kind of beats are in Romancing the Stone, and it's just so much better.
Yep, absolutely.
This movie was infuriating. Like I said, I think I watched it in 4 sittings. Because it's really longer than it needs to be. And
it's still, I will say, the second worst James Bond ripoff that we've done for the show, starring Omar Sharif, after one that I did a mini-sode on called SHE Security Hazards Expert, which is terrible.
Yeah.
But he also plays basically the same character in that. He's like, he owns a vineyard somewhere, and he's the big bad. Yeah.
And I do not find Ryan O'Neal handsome.
No, I think this is so far past his prime. It really should have been somebody else, and I understand why he was the 6th choice for the part.
I do feel bad for him later in the movie, though, where he's doing all these scenes out in the sun shirtless, and you can see that he is just lobster red.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, that sucks.
But he also looks decent when he's shirtless at the beach house. I was like, okay, he's at least in shape for this. Like, it could be worse. But he's not as handsome as he was in the 70s, obviously. When he locked in Farrah Fawcett, he had to look better for that.
I struggled really hard to get through this movie.
Yeah.
I think I was coming into this room every few minutes being like, what's happening? What is going on? What did I miss? I don't understand anything that's going on in this movie.
Yeah, this is one of those movies where you don't even want to watch it in the first place, and you have to rewind it a lot. and you don't get anything when you rewind it. You're like, did I miss something? Okay, no, I didn't.
Just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Nobody has any clear motivations in this movie.
Yeah. And then it pays off later, and you're like, oh, I guess retroactively that stuff makes sense. Yeah. But before it was very confusing.
No, retroactively, there was a cause. It doesn't necessarily make sense.
Correlation doesn't mean causation.
Yeah. But it's only there because it had to be there.
Right. Yeah. Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down. I really don't have anything to say because it was just an arduous watch and then again, like when they were putting the emeralds in the bait well, I think is what he calls it. It was just like, why didn't you just put it in the bilge?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't have searched there.
Put a few in your ass, like a few of them.
Yeah, right up in the prison wallet.
Yeah.
They're polished.
Yeah.
They'll go in smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awful. What are we thinking Letterboxd on this one?
I have this in 27th out of 30. It is below Shoot the Moon and above Death Wish 2. Because again, at least there wasn't any rape scenes in this one.
Off camera.
There was. It just didn't happen on screen.
Okay, we didn't have to watch it happen.
Yeah, there you go.
I also have it in 27th, but it's below Personal Best and above Love and Money.
Well, it seems we all agree on something. This is indeed the 27th best film that we've seen so far this year. I have it in 27th out of 30, also below Personal Best, but right above McVicker for me. Our director here was Ernest Day. He was, as I said, originally attached as a second unit director and replaced director Anthony Simmons a few weeks into the production. This is his first directing credit, followed only by Waltz Across Texas, and we'll find out why he was invited to direct that later. He has second unit or AD credits on Man with the Golden Gun, Moonraker, and Rambo 3. He was a camera operator on Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, You Only Live Twice, A Clockwork Orange, Juggernaut, Pink Panther Strikes Again, and Mission Impossible. The uncredited director/writer was Anthony Simmons. Not much else I recognize from this guy either. One of the writers was Edward Anhalt. He wrote the screenplay and story for The Boston Strangler, Jeremiah Jones, and Iceman Cometh. Writer Ray Hassett. His only feature writing credit, but he has acting credits in The Spy Who Loved Me, Superman, and so far on the show Empire Strikes Back and Ragtime. Later he's in Body Double. Another writer credit for Robert De Laurentiis. Nothing much I recognized before a few recent TV writing credits on shows like The O.C., The Unusuals, The Umbrella Academy, and 5 episodes of the new Fargo series, all 4 of which he is a producer on.
Is he related to Dino?
I don't know. But probably. The novelist is Gerald A. Browne. His only other writing credit is for his novel 11 Harrow House, which was adapted into a film of the same name. The music here came from Bill Wyman. He's likely best known as the bass guitarist of the Rolling Stones from 62 to 93. The music is insufferable. It's the same 4 seconds of music on loop the whole time.
Okay, so you said that they were arguing about what the tone of this movie was, and it just wildly shifts.
Yep.
Like, is it a drama? Is it a romance? Is it a comedy with these jaunty tunes that keep coming in? Like,
but
I don't
it's the same 2 sounds over and over again. So whenever it's a serious dramatic scene, the music goes down da down da da down down da down da da down. And whenever it's a serious scene, it's like doom doom da doo doo doom doo da doo doo doom doo da doo doo doom doo da doo doo. And that's the whole movie. It's just alternating between those 2, and it's infuriating.
It's bad. It's really bad. Honestly,
It makes me like the Rolling Stones less.
Have the Rolling Stones killed?
Oh, sir, those aren't...
Do as I say!
I don't know who was... well, I guess I do know who was directing, but they weren't agreed on what it was supposed to be.
For sure. He also has soundtrack credits on Dario Argento titles Phenomena and Opera. More recently, he has credits in the Westworld and Pennyworth series, and parts of this score were later recycled for The Evil That Men Do in '84. The cinematographer here was Gilbert Taylor. He's a DP on Doctor Strangelove, Hard Day's Night, The Omen, Star Wars, and so far on the show Frenzy, Flash Gordon, and Venom. He's back this season for Losing It, and later Voyage of the Rock Aliens. The editor, John Jimpson, previously cut A Hard Day's Night, Kaleidoscope, Where Eagles Dare, Kelly's Heroes, and Star Wars. So far on the show, he has cut Frenzy. After this, he cuts High Road to China, Little Shop of Horrors, A Fish Called Wanda, King Ralph, and In and Out. Ryan O'Neal played Joseph Wiley. He got his start on Peyton Place in 501 episodes as Rodney Harrington. And then Oliver Barrett IV, What's Up Doc? He's Barry Lyndon in Barry Lyndon. He's in Nickelodeon, A Bridge Too Far. And we've had him on the show so far for Paper Moon, Obsession, and So Fine. He's barely in Obsession, but his daughter was in it, and so he has like a cameo in the background of the porno theater. Later this season, he's back for Partners and later Irreconcilable Differences. More recently, he was in Knight of Cups, and we just lost him in December of last year. Ann Archer played Holbrook. She was Carol on the Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice TV series. She's in Lifeguard, Paradise Alley. We've seen her so far in Hero at Large and Raise the Titanic. After this, she appears in Waltz Across Texas, which she developed and produced herself before seeking out director Ernest Day to reunite with. She was Cassandra Wilder in 22 episodes of Falcon Crest, Beth Gallagher in Fatal Attraction. She's Kathy Ryan, wife of Jack Ryan, in Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. More recently, she has appeared as Barbara Reynolds, the ex-wife of Danny DeVito's Frank Reynolds, on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the mother of Dennis and Dee. She was also on The Dropout, that miniseries about biotech entrepreneur and felon Elizabeth Holmes, and I actually recommend checking it out if you haven't. Michael Showalter directs a bunch of them, and it's super good. Omar Sharif played Meno Argenti. He's Dr. Zhivago in Dr. Zhivago. Ali in Lawrence of Arabia. Nick Arnstein in Funny Girl. We've seen him now in Baltimore Bullet, Oh Heavenly Dog, and in the minisode review of Female Bond Attempt, SHE, Security Hazards Expert. This is actually his second film about an emerald heist after 1971's The Burglars. Later this season, he's back for Inchon, and later, he's Agent Cedric in Top Secret. He's in The 13th Warrior, and more recently, he was in Rock the Casbah with Bill Murray. Domingo Ambriz played Miguel. Before this, he was in Meteor and The Jerk, and he's back next season for Twilight Zone, The Star Chamber, and Beyond the Limit. John Larroquette was Claude. His first credit was for providing the narration at the start of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We've seen him so far in Heartbeat, Altered States, and Stripes, and later this season he's back for Cat People, and later the Twilight Zone movie, Star Trek 3, Life Force, Summer Rental, Night Court with last week's Richard Mole, Demon Knight, and he came back to narrate the Chainsaw Massacre remake. Unless they just reused the audio, I'm not sure. He's also the dad in the latter-day Beethoven movies, and he was on West Wing, Arrested Development, Boston Legal, The Librarians, and most recently he has returned to the celebrated role of Dan Fielding on the Night Court reboot. Philip Stone played Jochim Kellerman. Before this, he appeared in Thunderball, Where Eagles Dare. He's Alexander's dad in A Clockwork Orange, and he reunited with Malcolm McDowell in Oh Lucky Man. Stone had previously appeared alongside Ryan O'Neal in Barry Lyndon for Kubrick. We've seen him previously on the show for The Shining and Flash Gordon, and he's back later for Temple of Doom and 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Cool to see Captain Blumbird in action, actually diving over things and shooting at people. Michael Sheard played Jaap. We've seen him now as Jim in Frenzy, as Admiral Ozzel in Empire Strikes Back, a man in Airport in Rough Cut, and as the U-boat captain in Raiders. He returns to the Indiana Jones series later in Last Crusade to play Adolf Hitler himself. Enrique Lucero played Lucho the coffee grower. He's one of the villagers in The Magnificent Seven. He's Ignacio in The Wild Bunch, a bank guard in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He's in 2 Mules for Sister Sarah, Buck and the Preacher, The Long Goodbye, and current Patreon poll contender Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. We've also seen him so far in Guyana Cult of the Damned and The Octagon. After this, he's in The Evil That Men Do, which reuses parts of this film's score. Manuel Ojeda played Lieutenant Costas, that's the big bad that she kills avenging her sister in the road. Later, he's Zolo in Romancing the Stone, another film about chasing down emeralds, and a lead actress with a sister in danger in Colombia. Tara Fellner played Carrie, Holbrook's sister. We saw her last as Iris in King of the Mountain, and these are her only 2 feature film appearances. Sandra Kearns played Woman at Bar. Later, she's Melissa Williams in Chud 2, Bud the Chud. Raul Martinez played General Martinez. So I guess for the credits of the film, they just took his last name, even though he had a name in the movie. After this, he's a Mexican police sergeant in The Falcon and the Snowman. Enrique Novi played Naval Officer. Later, he's Rasmussen in License to Kill. That's the guy who dumps all the emeralds off the boat. Miguel Angel Fuentes played Geraldo, Argenti's bodyguard. We saw him last as Grot in Caveman. Next, he's Cholo in Fitzcarraldo, Player in Sorceress, Big Bear in Triumphs of a Man Called Horse, and Latino in The Evil That Men Do. More recently, he played a bodyguard for Pablo Escobar in Ted Demi's Blow. Delroy White played Prentice. He plays a character named Winkler in The Bees, which obviously reminds me of the line from Little Nicky.
Hey, Nicky, cover Winkler in Bees. You can do it. Sorry, Henry.
And we've seen him so far in Guyana Cult of the Damned. I think that's everything for Green Ice. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between 99 and 44 100% Dead, Amazing Grace, The Black Godfather, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, California Split, The Castaway Cowboy, Confessions of a Police Captain, Dead of Night, The Girl from Petrovka, Harry and Tonto, Macon County Line, and Newman's Law for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing 10 Violent Women, which IMDb describes like so. 8 women miners get fed up with their lifestyle and decide to try crime, presumably with 2 other women. After successfully pulling off a jewelry store robbery, they're busted by the narcs when they try to buy cocaine. This is like half of a scene. This isn't the plot of a movie. We leave you now with a trailer for 10 Violent Women. Why would it say 8 women in the fucking summary?
Here's to liberation and kinkiness enough to enjoy it.
When 10 liberated, fun-loving, decisive, enterprising young ladies fail in a gold mining venture, they choose to become 10 violent women. Precision timing, careful planning, and teamwork do the trick. That is with a little extra persuasion.
It's the rainbow.
That I take them all.
Very good.
Fill it up. What?
This is the first time I've ever taken my clothes off in an alley.
I need a description. How many were there?
$1 million, my best collection.
They break away from boring old ties and are off to make new friends and influence people. Find new adventure.
Bullshit ladies, we aren't playing games anymore. I mean, if we get caught with this stuff, we are going to all do time.
Another half for $1.5 million. I suggest you take it while you got the chance.
Well, screw you, mister.
I said that was my last and final offer.
Getting their kicks along the way.
No!
Becoming more nervy.
Junie, will you stop that goddamn thing? You make me want to puke!
Busted. They take the consequences. They meet new people.
I am Miss Terry. All right, girls. Back in your cells.
Things are sometimes pleasant. Sometimes difficult.
Just get ready to stop it, Miss Terry. That's Canton Summer's fights.
Good friends are hard to make.
If you ever again have the insolence to side with an inmate against me, so help me God, I'll have your ass.
Lead her out of the darkness. You smote her sins.
Is to match the whiteness of your alleged virginity. I'm gonna get her. I've told her you'll be joining her in solitary soon. Do try not to disappoint her, my dear.
Enough is enough. The girls again take decisive action, get respect authority. Having survived hard times, they're anxious to see the world, willing to do anything to get what they want.
The steward says he would have passage for you if you would be willing to work.
Anything.
You say you'll do anything?
No. Yes.
Yes, we'll do anything.
Don't miss 10 Violent Women.